This video is brought to you by Sun King Discs. Go to sunkingdiscs.com for a full selection of disc golf merchandise from all the major brands. What's up, guys? Welcome to my review of the DGA First Flight Quake. Overstable mid-range by DGA. Big thank you to Sun King Discs for sponsoring this video. You can go to sunkingdiscs.com to check out the website, or just go straight to the description. You'll find a direct link. They'll take you straight to these Quakes on Sun King's website, and if you want, you can just go back to the homepage from there and look through all the other plastic and awesome gear that is available on the website. So thank you to them. Thanks to all you guys for watching as well. If you like the videos, please consider subscribing if you've not done so already, so you can stay tuned for future uploads. Let's get into the review of the DGA Quake. It's a really nice overstable mid-range. I already took one crack at filming this video, and this orange one was a little bright maybe and a little bit tricky to see on camera. This one is 177 grams. This one is like 170 to 172, so I have not actually weighed them, but I have not really seen a huge difference in the flights. This one maybe has a tiny bit more glide maybe because it's a little bit lighter, but I'm really not noticing much difference. They're both very overstable. This one might actually be a little bit more overstable, but either way, it's definitely not less overstable based on my testing and my reviewing of the footage and stuff. Let's take a look at this blue one. These are both first flights, which means they are essentially the same as like a first run. And yeah, Quake. The flight numbers are not listed on the disc. You have this kind of like fissure kind of crack there from the fault line or whatever. DGA First Flight. The flight numbers not listed on the disc are 5, 3, 0, and 3, and I would say those are basically spot on from my testing. No issue with the flight numbers whatsoever. Taking a look at the profile and the rim of this disc, you can see it's very shallow. There's not much width to the rim. Doesn't really seem to be much mass on the rim either. This underside here is pretty wide and very rounded, almost forms like a bead, but not really, because it's not separated from the rim. It's all in one smooth transition. So it is a really, really comfortable, beadless, low profile, super flat topped, overstable mid-range. I really, really like the feel of this disc, and as we get into the flight portion, we'll talk a little bit more about its role in my bag potentially. But yeah, taking another look here, you can see it's kind of reminiscent of something like a Zone to my eye. I don't have one here to put it next to, unfortunately, but I do have some other overstable mids we'll take a look at in just a second. But super flat top, again, full large diameter mid-range, like it's not like a small diameter disc like a Justice or something that we'll see a little bit later, but it is very low profile and just feels amazing in the hand. I love the feel of this thing. Right out of the box, when I started handling this, I knew this is going to be something I was interested in because I just really love the feel. It's super low profile. It feels great for forehand grips as well. You'll see some of my absolutely horrendous attempts at throwing this thing forehand later on. But I was already familiar with the Quake because James, who helps me out with so many of the reviews, I'm sure you guys know James, you'll see him later on in the video, he is actually carrying a First Flight Quake for an orange one like this that he throws for all of his forehand approaches and kind of short range forehand tee shots and stuff, and he's really accurate with it. I've seen him ace a short hole with it, and yeah, throw a lot of really great shots with that disc. So I was already familiar with it and happy to get out and test it myself. This plastic, I believe, is basically very similar to like an ESP plastic. If you guys are not familiar, DGA discs are produced by Discraft, so they have the same type of plastics and they have very similar, you know, high quality materials, high quality production, very consistent. Discraft has always been known as a very consistent company. It's hard to say if that's still the case with the amount of plastic they're putting out now, but years ago that was one of the things that kind of drew me towards Discraft over some other brands, is that they're just really consistent from disc to disc. Let's put it up next to a few other options. First of all, we have the Justice, which is kind of the standard of measure for overstable mid-ranges, and this one is nice Moonshine Justice, extremely overstable. So you can see they're very similar in terms of the flat top nature, but when you put them flat like that, you can see the Quake is a little bit larger diameter. Right there, you can kind of get a look at it. And also, make sure I'm not showing you any ink, Justice has that big bead, and you know, a different vibe in general. Seems maybe similar in terms of depth. I still think the Quake is a little bit lower profile, especially because it's not featuring the bead, like the Justice has that big old bead there. Definitely a little bit larger diameter, a little bit lower profile. So if you like a low profile disc, this could be a nice option for you. I have a few things. Let's take a look at a few things here. We have the Champ Gator as well. Hugely different in terms of design. Also smaller diameter. Has that big old chunky blocky rim with that huge bead as well. But similar in terms of what you'd use it for. That is the Innova Gator, Champ Gator. We also have an Anvil from Westside Discs. I'm going to once again tell you guys the same thing I've said a bunch of times, which is that I have so many of these overstable mids because I'm still planning to do a big kind of mass overstable mid-range comparison video eventually. And here it is next to the Anvil. Also, probably the most similar out of anything else I have in stock for the moment would be this Deflector. Another flat top disc, similar diameter, and relatively similar in terms of shape. Also a beadless, extremely overstable flat top mid-range. And last but not least, since I have it sitting here, we have Frank Castle, which is my Gold Line Anchor. Anchor, definitely different, more of that rock type vibe. It's got the bead there as well, and not nearly as overstable. So I would say, in terms of those discs, based on what I've tested so far, the Quake's more overstable than the Anvil, more overstable than the Anchor. I have not thrown that Gator yet, and the Justice and the Quake, very similar in terms of stability. I think the Quake has the ability to hold straighter up to speed for longer and get a little bit more distance, but if you throw them on hyzer, if you throw them up high, they have a similarly aggressive fade once they start to slow down. All in all, I love the feel in the hand of this disc. I like the plastic. It feels great. I love how low profile this disc is. It feels amazing in the hand. And if you guys are fans of the Zone, I think this would be a really fantastic mid-range for you to look into as a complement to the Zone. Not to like get rid of the Zone, but times if you want something to go a little bit farther, a little bit faster, and probably have a little bit more of an aggressive, stronger hookup at the end of the flight, and more of a kind of meat hook overall vibe on shorter shots, I think the Quake would be a great option to kind of layer with the Zone for when you want a little bit more speed and a little bit more stability, based on my testing of this disc and other Zones and stuff in the past. Let's talk about the flight of this thing. It's not going to be a super long or thorough description because you guys know what an overstable mid-range does, but I really like this disc, and I think it's something that might end up in my bag. It's been in my bag for the last few rounds, actually. I actually don't even know if I carried the Anchor the last time I went out. I might have just put the Quake in there for certain shots, and it seemed to do just fine when I broke it out for a couple of different approaches and stuff. It's not going to be a disc I'm throwing on every hole. If I was somebody that really defaulted to a forehand approach shot, I could see it being something that I threw a lot, but you guys know my forehand is terrible. You're going to see it in this video. It's really bad, but I can kind of make it work on this thing. I can kind of put it on some anhyzer and chop it out there, and it'll flex out and kind of dump towards the basket. And I can get up and down from little tricky situations, maybe like a step out where I need to reach out, you know, out and around a tree to the right-hand side and kind of chop out a forehand and get up and down. Could be a great disc for that, but I really like this thing because of the feel. The flight is awesome. It's really overstable, so I know exactly how it's going to behave. It's a great spike approach disc. You can throw it up high, and it really fights in strong on that hyzer finish and digs and sits. I didn't see a lot of skip out of it, but we weren't really testing it in very skippy conditions. You could probably play for a low skipper with this thing if you wanted to. Again, all depending on the ground and all that stuff. Could be a nice forehand roller disc as well. Definitely a phenomenal forehand approach mid-range. Can't stress that enough. If you guys like to go to the forehand to get up and down, I think you'll really like the Quake. It feels great in the hand with that flat top, the low profile, the kind of small rim. Everything combines to feel really nice for forehands. And again, that's almost exclusively what James carries his for. He actually hadn't even thrown his backhand hardly at all before we actually got out and did the testing and filming for these discs. But you'll see, he was able to throw nice lines with the backhand as well. So as you guys know, James and Andy have more power than me, so factor that in when you're watching the flights of these discs, but you're also still going to see that they're quite overstable. Depending on the angle, you might not see a ton of fade. You'll see Andy can pull this thing over completely on anhyzer, and it kind of barely comes out a little bit. I was able to produce the same thing out in the field as well, where I could get it completely yanked over and it would stay over, but you'd have to really try to get it to do that. I like this thing best for flat to hyzer finish, spikes when I really want it to dig and sit, or throw them with a slight anhyzer. It will fly smooth to the right just a little bit, straighten out, and it'll kind of mitigate the fade a little bit when you throw it on anhyzer. It doesn't like completely come out and really still hook up too strong, so you can get a lot of different varying shots out of this disc, and I really like it. This is what I refer to as a dilemma disc, because I'm not necessarily looking to add anything to my bag, and I'm not really looking to bump the anchor out of my bag, but it could happen either way. It might be something that I switch to the Quakes, or I could potentially put it in alongside the anchor for certain times where I really want that overstability, because especially this particular gold line that I've been throwing is quite worked in at this point and not that overstable. So that is my review on the DGA Quake. I definitely appreciate your continued support. I also super appreciate Sun King Discs for hooking me up with so much great plastic. Thank you to my Patreon supporters as well. If you guys like the videos, stay tuned for more, because I am not slowing down. I'm going to keep trying to get these videos coming out as much as I can, and I will talk to you all very soon. Cheers. Thank you so much for watching, and big thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. If you would like to see your name listed in the credits of all of my videos, go to patreon.com/discgolfnerd.